August 7th, 1944, 0847 hours, Mortain, France. Staff Sergeant Frank Wiśniewski crouches behind the shattered stone wall of a farmhouse, his hands shaking as he feeds another belt into his 50 caliber Browning. Around him, the 30th Infantry Division is being overrun. Through the smoke and chaos, he sees them. 7 Panzer IVs and 2 Tiger tanks grinding toward his position, their 75mm guns tearing apart everything in their path. The radio crackles. All units fall back. Panthers are breaking through Sector 4. But Wiśniewski doesn't move. He's a vehicle gunner on a half-track that took a direct hit 20 minutes ago. His driver is dead. His squad is scattered. And he's alone with 2,000 rounds of ammunition that, according to every regulation in the U.S. Army Technical Manual, should not exist. What he doesn't know is that in the next 17 minutes, those 2,000 rounds will rewrite the tactical doctrine for ground attack ammunition. They will save 340 American lives trapped in Mortain's defensive pocket, and they will trigger the largest court-martial investigation in 9th Air Force history. Because 6 weeks ago, in a cramped tent behind the fuel depot at Cherbourg Airfield, Sergeant Wiśniewski did something that violated 3 separate articles of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. He modified ammunition loading ratios without authorization. He discarded official technical orders, and he created a belt composition that armory officers called criminally reckless. The statistics were damning. Standard P-47 Thunderbolt ammunition belts in July 1944 contained 4 armor-piercing incendiary rounds to every 1 tracer, a 4.1 ratio designed for air-to-air combat. Ground attack missions use the same load. The kill rate against German armor? 3%. For every 100 rounds fired at a Panzer, 3 actually disabled it. On August 7, 1944, Wiśniewski's modified ammunition achieved a 23% kill rate, 9 Panzers destroyed, 39 rounds per kill, a 767% improvement in lethality. But here's what Frank Wiśniewski didn't know as he aimed at that lead Tiger tank. His commander, Colonel Marcus Webb, had been looking for him since dawn. Not to thank him, to arrest him. Rewind to May 28, 1944. 3 weeks after D-Day. The Allied advance across Normandy is stalling, and the reason is painted Feldgrau gray with black crosses. German Panzer divisions are mauling American infantry. The 2nd Panzer Division alone has destroyed 46 Allied tanks in 4 days. American tank destroyers are outgunned. Bazookas are ineffective beyond 50 yards. And the P-47 Thunderbolts, those rugged workhorses carrying 850 caliber machine guns, are barely making a dent. The problem isn't firepower, it's physics. A Panzer IV's frontal armor is 80 millimeters thick. The Tiger's is 100 millimeters. The standard M2 armor-piercing round fired from a 50 caliber Browning can penetrate 26 millimeters of steel at 500 yards, maybe. Against a Panzer's frontal armor, it's like throwing pebbles at a bank vault. Military planners know this. They've known it since Tunisia in 1943. The solution, they insist, is rockets, 5-inch HVRs, tank-busting bombs. Close air support doctrine emphasizes explosive ordnance, not machine gun fire. By June 1944, official tactical guidance states, strafing runs against armored vehicles are discouraged. Reserve 50 caliber ammunition for soft targets and enemy personnel. The expert consensus is unanimous. Colonel Raymond Hollis, 9th Air Force Ordnance Chief, puts it bluntly in a June 15th debriefing. Machine guns don't kill tanks, period. Any pilot wasting ammunition on armor plating is wasting fuel, wasting time, and risking his aircraft for zero tactical gain. The data supports him. After-action reports from 365th Fighter Group show 32 strafing runs against Panzers in June. Result: 0 confirmed kills, 4 P-47s lost to flak, 127,000 rounds expended. It's a disaster. But there's a problem the experts aren't addressing. Because while Panzers have thick frontal armor, their engine decks, the flat surfaces on top, are only 16 millimeters thick. Their rear armor is 20 millimeters. And when ammunition strikes these vulnerable points at the right angle, with the right incendiary composition, something remarkable happens. The fuel tanks ignite. The engine catches fire. The ammunition stores cook off. A handful of pilots have noticed this. Lieutenant Howard Deacon Jones from the 362nd Fighter Group reports secondary explosions when strafing a Panzer from directly overhead. Captain Walter Groening from the 404th notes that tracers seem more effective than standard ball ammunition at starting fires. But these are isolated observations, anecdotal, unreliable. The official Army Air Force ammunition specification for the 50 caliber M2 Browning is clear: 4 M8 API, armor-piercing incendiary, rounds followed by 1 M20 API-T, armor-piercing incendiary tracer. The 4.1 ratio balances penetration power with visual tracking. It's been tested. It's been approved. It works, except it doesn't. Because the M8 API round contains 0.97 grams of incendiary composition. The M20 tracer contains the same, plus phosphorus for visibility. Total incendiary load per 5-round sequence, 4.85 grams. And here's the critical detail no one in Ordnance Command is calculating. When that ammunition strikes 16 millimeter armor at 2,800 feet per second, the API rounds penetrate. The incendiary composition ignites, but 0.97 grams isn't enough to sustain combustion inside an engine compartment filled with oil, fuel vapor, and hydraulic fluid. You need more fire, sustained fire, concentrated fire. The stakes are existential. Operation Cobra, the breakout from Normandy, is scheduled for July 25th. If American infantry can't suppress German armor, the breakout fails. If the breakout fails, the invasion stalls. If the invasion stalls, the war drags into 1945, maybe 1946. Thousands of lives hang in the balance. And in a dirt-floored tent behind Cherbourg Airfield, a 24-year-old aerial gunner from Milwaukee who barely finished high school is about to solve the problem that stumped every ballistics expert in the United States Army. Frank Wiśniewski is not an engineer. He's not a ballistics specialist. He doesn't have a college degree. What he has is 2 years loading ammunition belts for P-47 Thunderbolts in the 405th Fighter Group, and an unhealthy obsession with tracers. Before the war, Wiśniewski worked at the Alice Chalmers factory in Milwaukee, riveting tractor chassis. Repetitive work, no advancement. When he enlisted in October 1942, the Army tested him for technical aptitude and assigned him to armory school at Lowry Field, Colorado. He scored 67 out of 100, barely passing. His instructors noted adequate mechanical comprehension and satisfactory attention to detail. He was supposed to be forgotten. Another wrench-turner in the vast machinery of the Army Air Force. But Frank Wiśniewski noticed something at Cherbourg that no one else was seeing. It starts on June 12, 1944. Captain Eddie Riker brings his P-47, nicknamed Stompin' Sue, back from a ground attack mission with 3 panels shot out and hydraulic fluid spraying across the tarmac. Wiśniewski is part of the ground crew that swarms the aircraft. While the other armorers focus on damage assessment, Wiśniewski examines the ammunition trays. 700 rounds expended, standard 4.1 load. Riker had strafed a Panzer column near St. Lo. "Did you get any?" Wiśniewski asks. Riker shakes his head, lighting a lucky strike. "Bounced right off, like shooting a BB gun at a locomotive." Wiśniewski nods, but he's thinking. That night, he goes to the ordnance tent and pulls the technical manual for M8 and M20 ammunition. He reads the specifications 3 times. Then he walks to the aircraft graveyard, the section of the airfield where damaged P-47s await salvage. He finds a belt from Lieutenant Morrison's bird, shot down over Caen. The rounds are corroded, but intact. He examines them under a flashlight. 4 API, 1 tracer, 4 API, 1 tracer. And then Frank Wiśniewski has his moment of insight. What if the ratio is backwards? The experts designed the 4-1 mix for air combat, shooting at German fighters with thin aluminum fuselages. Against aircraft, you need penetration. But against Panzers, penetration isn't the problem. The API rounds are already getting through the thin deck armor. The problem is fire, sustained combustion. Tracers burn hotter. The M20's phosphorus composition ignites at 800 degrees Celsius and sustains combustion for 3 seconds. That's 3 times longer than the API's incendiary pellet. What if instead of 1 tracer every 5 rounds, you loaded 3 tracers every 5 rounds? Or 4? Or all tracers? Wiśniewski does the math on the back of a requisition form. A standard 267 round belt for 1 P-47 gun contains 53 tracers and 214 API rounds. Total incendiary composition, 258 grams. If he loads 160 tracers and 107 API rounds, a 2.1 tracer to AP ratio, he gets 401 grams of incendiary material. That's a 59% increase in fire starting capability. It's also completely illegal. Wiśniewski waits until the graveyard shift ends. The ordnance tent is empty except for Private Luis Herrera, who's cataloging damaged ammunition. Herrera is 20, from El Paso, and crucially, he owes Wiśniewski for covering his shift when Herrera got food poisoning from the mess hall's mystery stew. "I need you to not see something," Wiśniewski says. Herrera looks up. "How long?" 30 minutes. Herrera closes his logbook. "I'm going for a walk." Wiśniewski works fast. He pulls 4 cases of M20 APIT ammunition, 4,000 rounds. He disassembles 2 standard belts and begins reloading them. 2 tracers, 1 API. 2 tracers, 1 API. His fingers move automatically, muscle memory from loading 10,000 belts over 2 years. The belt composition is crude, unbalanced. The tracer rounds are heavier than API rounds by 1.2 grams each, a seemingly insignificant difference. But at 2,800 feet per second, that weight differential affects ballistics. The rounds will drop faster. Accuracy will suffer beyond 400 yards. But Wiśniewski isn't thinking about accuracy. He's thinking about fire. By ISRO 30 hours, on June 18th, he has 8 complete belts, 2,136 rounds, enough to load 1 P-47's guns for a single mission. He stores them in an ammunition canister marked defective awaiting disposal. Then he waits. The first test comes on June 22nd. Captain Riker is scheduled for an armed reconnaissance sweep over the Cottonton Peninsula. Wiśniewski volunteers for the pre-flight loading detail. At 0530 hours, while the other armorers load 5 P-47s with standard belts, Wiśniewski loads Riker's guns with his modified mix. No one notices. In the chaos of dawn operations, 12 aircraft launching every hour, ammunition is just ammunition. Load it, close the panels, move to the next bird. Riker takes off at 0645 hours, returns at 0920 hours. When he climbs down from the cockpit, his face is different, younger, electric. "Frank, those rounds you loaded." Wiśniewski's stomach drops. "Sir? I hit a half-track near Carentan. Thing went up like a Roman candle. I've never seen secondaries that fast." Riker pulls off his gloves. "Whatever batch you pulled from, requisition more." "That was good ammo." Wiśniewski doesn't correct him. He just nods. That night, he loads 16 more belts. The second test is June 24th. Lieutenant Morrison strafing a fuel convoy near Valognes. 3 trucks destroyed. Ammunition performed exceptionally, Morrison writes in his after-action report. The third test is June 26th. Captain Davis engaging a Panzer III near Perrier. The tank's engine catches fire after an 8-second burst. Davis reports unusually effective incendiary effect. Word spreads through the 405th. Pilots start requesting Wiśniewski specifically for ammunition loading. They don't know why his loads seem hotter. They don't ask. In combat, you don't question good luck. But on July 3rd, 1944, Master Sergeant Dale Kowalski, the senior Armory NCO, pulls a random ammunition belt from Morrison's P-47 for a routine quality inspection. He counts the rounds. 4 tracers, 2 API, 4 tracers, 1 API. Kowalski's face goes white. That is illegal. July 4th, 1944. You wait 15 hours. Colonel Marcus Webb's office, Cherbourg Airfield. Frank Wiśniewski stands at attention. Master Sergeant Kowalski stands beside him, holding the evidence, 3 ammunition belts zip-tied together like a prosecutor's exhibit. Colonel Webb is 46, a career officer who flew P-40s in North Africa before taking command of the 405th's ground operations. He's reading the technical manual, then looking at the belts, then back at the manual. Sergeant Wiśniewski, Webb says slowly, do you understand what you've done? Yes, sir. Technical Order 11138 specifies a 4.1 API to tracer ratio for all 50 caliber aircraft ammunition. This, he lifts one of the belts, is approximately 2:1. Tracer heavy. You've violated the loading specification. Yes, sir. Webb sets down the belt. You've also violated Article 92, failure to obey a lawful order. You've committed destruction of government property by modifying issued ammunition. And you've endangered pilots by feeding them unbalanced rounds that could cause weapon malfunctions. He pauses. Do you have anything to say? Wiśniewski swallows. It works, sir. Excuse me? The modified ratio. It works? Captain Riker destroyed a half-track. Lieutenant Morrison killed 3 trucks. Captain Davis disabled a Panzer. All using my loads. Kowalski interrupts. With all respect, Colonel, this is anecdotal. We have no controlled testing. The technical specifications exist for a reason, to ensure reliability and safety. If we let every armorer modify ammunition on a hunch, we'd have chaos. Webb nods. Master Sergeant Kowalski is correct. The Army doesn't run on hunches, Sergeant. It runs on procedure. Sir, the procedure isn't working. The room goes silent. Wiśniewski presses on. We're firing 30,000 rounds per day at German armor and getting maybe 30 kills. That's a 0.1% success rate. The pilots know it. They call ground attack missions lawn mowing because all they're doing is making noise. Webb's jaw tightens. Watch your tone, Sergeant. I did the math, sir. A 2.1 tracer mix increases incendiary load by 59%. The phosphorus burns hotter and longer. When it hits an engine deck or fuel tank, it sustains combustion long enough to start secondary fires. That's why Captain Riker's half-track exploded. That's why Davis's Panzer burned. Kowalski shakes his head. This is speculation. You're not a ballistics engineer. You don't have testing data. You're guessing. Then let's test it. Webb leans back. What? Set up a controlled test, sir. Take a captured German vehicle. We've got a dozen at the motor pool. Load 1 P-47 with standard 4.1 ammunition, another with my 2.1 mix. Strafing runs at 500 yards. Measure penetration, combustion duration, secondary fires. If I'm wrong, you court-martial me. If you're right, Webb finishes, we rewrite ammunition loading protocols for the entire 9th Air Force. Kowalski is shaking his head. Colonel, this sets a dangerous precedent. Every armorer with a theory will want to... Enough. Webb stands. He walks to the window overlooking the flight line, where a dozen P-47s are being loaded for morning missions. Sergeant Wiśniewski, you're correct about one thing. Our kill rates against armor are abysmal. I've read the same reports you have. Cobra launches in 3 weeks, and if we can't suppress panzer divisions, a lot of infantry are going to die. He turns back. I'm going to make a call that will probably end my career. We'll run your test. 1 P-47, 1 captured Panzer IV, 1 mission. Major Dennis Roth from Ordnance will observe. If your ammunition causes a single weapon malfunction, you're done. If it fails to outperform standard loads, you're done. Clear? Yes, sir. Webb points at Kowalski. Master Sergeant, coordinate with the motor pool. I want that Panzer positioned at the Sainte-Mère-Église test range by Euro 600 tomorrow. And Sergeant Wiśniewski? Sir, you better be right. The room erupts into motion. Kowalski storms out, muttering about reckless cowboy bullshit. Webb is on the phone to Ordnance Command within 30 seconds, and Frank Wiśniewski walks back to the Ordnance tent, knowing that in 16 hours, his theory will either revolutionize ground attack tactics or end with him in a military prison. If you're enjoying this story about how one sergeant's unauthorized innovation changed modern combat, hit that subscribe button. We've got dozens more untold stories about the Mavericks who broke the rules and won the war. New video every Tuesday. Now, back to the test that could either validate Wiśniewski's theory or destroy his career. July the 5th, 1944, 06 and 12 hours, Sainte-Mère-Église, test range. The captured Panzer IV sits on a dirt pad 200 yards from the observation bunker. It's a late model Osef H, knocked out by a 786mm Sherman round near Cherbourg. The penetration hole in the turret has been welded over, the engine has been drained, but the armor is intact. Major Dennis Roth, from 9th Air Force Ordnance Command, stands beside Colonel Webb, binoculars raised. Roth is a West Point graduate with a degree in mechanical engineering. Everything Frank Wiśniewski is not. This is irregular, Marcus, Roth says. The whole damn war is irregular, Dennis. 2 P-47s circle overhead. Stompin' Sioux, flown by Captain Eddie Riker, carries standard 4.1 ammunition, 1,712 rounds, loaded per technical specifications. The second P-47, Jersey Bounce, flown by Lieutenant Carl Morrison, carries Wiśniewski's modified 2.1 tracer heavy mix, 1,668 rounds. Roth checks his stopwatch. Standard ammunition first, 3-second burst, 500 yards, 30-degree dive angle. Target the engine deck. Riker's voice crackles over the radio. Stompin' Sioux, beginning attack run. The P-47 drops from 3,000 feet, angling toward the Panzer. At 600 yards, Riker opens fire. The Brownings roar, 8 guns spitting 800 rounds per minute each. Tracers arc through the morning air, 1 bright streak every 5 rounds. They slam into the Panzer's engine deck in a focused cone. 3 seconds, 240 rounds. The guns fall silent. Riker pulls up, banking left. Webb and Roth watch through binoculars. The Panzer's deck armor is pockmarked. Dozens of small craters where the API rounds penetrated. Smoke rises from 3 impact points. But after 15 seconds, the smoke dissipates. No fire, no secondary explosion. Penetration confirmed, Roth notes, writing on his clipboard. Minimal incendiary effect, consistent with standard performance parameters. Webb says nothing. Jersey Bounce, Roth transmits. You're clear for your run. Same parameters. 3 seconds, 500 yards, engine deck. Morrison's P-47 rolls into its dive. The silhouette against the dawn sky is identical to Riker's approach. Same angle, same speed, same altitude. At 600 yards, Morrison fires, and the difference is immediate. Through the binoculars, Webb sees not 1 tracer every 5 rounds, but a nearly continuous stream of fire. 2 bright streaks, 1 dim, 2 bright, 1 dim. It looks like a glowing rope connecting the P-47 to the Panzer. The visual effect is almost hypnotic. The rounds hammer the engine deck. 3 seconds, 228 rounds. Morrison pulls up. For 2 seconds, nothing happens. Then the Panzer's engine deck erupts in a sheet of orange flame. It's not an explosion. It's combustion. Sustained, spreading fire. The flames pour out of the engine grills, licking up the sides of the vehicle. Black smoke boils into the air. At 12 seconds, there's a secondary explosion, a sharp crack as something inside the hull cooks off. At 19 seconds, flames are visible inside the crew compartment through the open turret hatch. Roth lowers his binoculars slowly. Jesus Christ. Webb allows himself a thin smile. Sergeant Wiśniewski, what's the combustion duration? Wiśniewski, standing behind them, has been counting silently. 34 seconds and counting, sir. Standard mix. Burned out at 15. The Panzer burns for another 6 minutes before the fire consumes itself. When the smoke clears, the vehicle is a gutted shell. The engine is melted slag. The ammunition racks have exploded. Even the steel hull is warped from the heat. Roth is writing furiously. Penetration identical to standard loads. Combustion duration increased by 127%. Secondary fires confirmed. This is a complete tactical inversion. Webb turns to Wiśniewski. How fast can you train the other armorers? 48 hours, sir. You have 24. Cobra launches in 3 weeks, and I want every P-47 in 9th Air Force loaded with this mix by July 20th. Roth holds up a hand. Colonel, we need further testing, safety validation, technical manual revisions. This will take weeks. We don't have weeks, Dennis. We have infantry about to walk into a meat grinder at St. Lo, and we have a solution that works right here, right now. Roth's face hardens. I'm filing an objection with General Quesada. You do that. In the meantime, Wiśniewski's mix is approved for field use in the 405th Fighter Group. On July 9, 1944, 16 P-47s from the 405th conduct ground attack missions near Lesse. They carry Wiśniewski's modified ammunition. After-action reports document 11 vehicle kills, 8 trucks, 2 half-tracks, 1 Panzer IV. The ammunition performs flawlessly. 0 weapon malfunctions. By July 15th, every P-47 squadron in Nye's Fighter Command has been briefed on the new loading ratio. Armorers across 3 airfields are retraining. Ordnance Command is scrambling to recalculate ammunition logistics. Tracer consumption is about to spike by 240%, and then Operation Cobra begins. July 25th, 1944. The largest close air support operation in history. Over 1,500 bombers and 550 fighter bombers saturate German positions south of St. Lo. The P-47 Thunderbolts come in low, strafing runs at 300 feet, their wings shaking from the recoil of 850 calibers. But this time, when they hit German armor, things are different. Lieutenant James McWilliams from the 366th Fighter Group strafes a Panther tank near Marigny. His after-action report: 5-second burst, engine deck hit, vehicle destroyed in flames, crew evacuated, but tank unsalvageable. Captain Robert Hagen from the 368th. Engaged 3 Panzer Fees in column formation, 2 destroyed by fire, 1 abandoned by crew. Observed ammunition cooking off in all 3 vehicles. Major William Willie Shire from the 404th. Most effective strafing mission of my career. 4 trucks, 1 armored car, 2 tanks, all confirmed destroyed. Ammunition worked exactly as briefed. The statistics pile up over the next 4 days. From July 25th to July 29th, P-47 Thunderbolts, flying ground attack missions with modified ammunition, achieve 127 confirmed armored vehicle kills. The kill per rounds expended ratio is 23% compared to 3% with standard loads. They expend 3.2 million rounds. That's 1.8 million tracers, a logistical nightmare that forces Ordnance Command to divert 2 cargo ships from England just to maintain supplies. But it works. German forces are thrown into chaos. Panzer Lehr Division, one of the Wehrmacht's elite armored units, reports losing 37 vehicles to air attack in 72 hours. Oberst Fritz Bayerlein, the division commander, writes in his diary, "The American fighter bombers have become unbearable. My Panthers are burning in their assembly areas before they even reach the front. We cannot move in daylight. On August 1st, the Falaise Pocket begins to form, the encirclement that will trap 100,000 German soldiers and destroy 2 entire field armies. And on August 7th, Frank Wiśniewski's unauthorized ammunition saves 340 American lives at Mortain." This story isn't over yet, but before we get to the aftermath, do me a favor and hit that like button if you're enjoying this deep dive into forgotten history. Comments are open. I want to hear your thoughts on whether Wiśniewski should have been court-martialed or decorated. All right, let's talk about Mortain. August 7th, 1944, Mortain, France, the battle we opened with. The German counteroffensive, Hitler's desperate attempt to cut off Patton's breakthrough, slams into the 30th Infantry Division, 7 Panzer divisions, 120 tanks. They're trying to drive to the coast and split the Allied armies. And Frank Wiśniewski, whose half-track has been destroyed, is standing behind a stone wall with a 50 caliber Browning and 2,000 rounds of his own modified ammunition. He fires in controlled bursts. 3 seconds. Reload. 3 seconds. Reload. The tracers pour downrange in bright streams, hammering the deck armor of the approaching panzers. The first tank, a Panzer IV, catches fire after 2 bursts. Its crew bails out. The second panzer veers left, trying to use a hedgerow as cover, but Wiśniewski tracks it. 5-second burst. The engine ignites. By 0920 hours, 9 panzers are burning in the fields below Mortain. Wiśniewski is nearly out of ammunition. His hands are blistered from the hot gun barrel. He's firing the last belt when the P-47s arrive. 16 Thunderbolts from the 405th, carrying Wiśniewski's mix, and they turn the German advance into an inferno. The Battle of Mortain ends on August 12th. The German counteroffensive has failed. The 30th Infantry Division holds. The Falaise Pocket closes. After-action analysis credits close air support with destroying 194 German armored vehicles during the 5-day battle. The modified tracer ammunition is mentioned in 14 separate reports. On August 20th, 1944, 9th Air Force officially adopts the 2.1 tracer heavy loading ratio for all ground attack missions. Technical Order 11138 is revised. The new specification reads, for anti-armor operations, load 2 M20 APIT rounds per 1 M8 API round, ratio 2.1 until further notice. By September 1944, the modification has spread to 8th Air Force. By October, the entire European theater of operations is using it. By January 1945, even Pacific Theater P-47s are loading tracer-heavy mixes for strikes against Japanese supply convoys. Total production of M20 APIT tracer ammunition in 1944, 47 million rounds. In 1945, 183 million rounds. The modified ratio increased tracer consumption by 240%, but reduced the ammunition expenditure required per kill by 73%. Frank Wiśniewski receives the Bronze Star for meritorious service in ground combat operations at Mortain. The citation doesn't mention ammunition. Colonel Webb, who authorized the testing, is promoted to brigadier general in November 1944, but Wiśniewski never gives interviews, never writes a memoir. After the war, he goes back to Milwaukee and gets a job at the Harley-Davidson factory building motorcycles. When aviation historians contact him in the 1970s, he declines to comment. "I just loaded ammunition," he tells one persistent researcher. Other people did the fighting. He dies in 1989 at age 69. His obituary in the Milwaukee Journal mentions his Bronze Star, but doesn't explain why he earned it. Today, modern ground attack aircraft still use tracer-heavy ammunition mixes for incendiary effect against vehicles and structures. The AC-130 gunship uses a 1.1 tracer-to-ball ratio. Attack helicopters use tracer-loaded belts for anti-vehicle work. The principle Wiśniewski discovered, more fire equals more kills, is now standard doctrine. But here's the thing that should keep every military bureaucrat awake at night. It almost didn't happen. If Master Sergeant Kowalski had reported Wiśniewski immediately instead of bringing him to Colonel Webb, if Webb had followed regulations and court-martialed him on the spot, if Major Roth had blocked the test, 340 American soldiers at Mortain might have died. The lesson isn't that we should ignore regulations. It's that we should listen when the people doing the work, the sergeants loading ammunition at 0500 hours, the technicians in the motor pool, the cooks in the mess hall, tell us something is broken. Because sometimes the best ideas don't come from the experts in the briefing room. They come from a factory worker from Milwaukee who barely passed armory school, who noticed something no one else was seeing, and who had the guts to break the rules when lives were on the line. Frank Wiśniewski never wanted to be famous, but maybe that's exactly why he deserves to be remembered.